Hello and welcome to another episode of the Falkirk Community Trust Us podcast. A fun look at sport and physical activity. I'm your host today alongside my active schools colleague Innes Paterson.
Hi Pete.
We are delighted to be joined today by two very special guests. They are both at the top of their game in the world of community sports hubs. We've got Martin Wylie from Falkirk Community Trust.
Hello.
And we have Greg Nicol from the Trice Community Sports Hub. Hi, Greg.
Hello.
Greg, could you get us started just by telling us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved in the role you're in?
So I've been involved with the Trice Community Sports Club for the past 3.5 years. Prior to that, I was involved with football development. Before that, coaching, and then originally I was at college doing sports development, led on to a sports science degree, and I have ended up in community sports hubs, which I thoroughly enjoy.
Brilliant. If you could do the same, Martin.
Thanks for having us. So I've been the Community Sport Hub Officer in Falkirk Community Trust for, I think it's about 3 years now too, just over 3 years. Prior to that, I spent my career, if you like, in North Lanarkshire. Started there way back in 2003 as a leisure attendant. And then I worked my way up into sports development. I spent a few years working on sports development on developing triathlon, jogging, and then I moved into active schools in North Lanarkshire for a year or so. And then after that, I spent a year working in education in North Lanarkshire, and then I moved to Falkirk.
Brilliant, thanks for that. First question we've got for you, and it's one for the listeners out there who might not be they might not have a job in sports, so it's just, what is a community sports hub?
So I believe a community sports hub to be a safe place or a group of places in the local community that brings local people together for sporting or non-sporting activity. But I think it's important to recognise that all sports hubs are different. We're not all the same, so the sports hub that I work within is different to the sports hub that Martin works within. But I think the key aims are all kind of generally similar. So all about engaging local community, promoting the community leadership and opportunities, and then ultimately offering a range of sporting opportunities for people to take part in. And that's not just kids, that's adults, elderly, nursery age kids, so opportunities for everyone to participate in.
Martin, I've got a question, maybe you can take this one. Obviously community clubs are a big part of your community sports hubs. What role do you play in actually supporting these clubs in the community?
Well, the role can be very varied. It can go from your sort of basic club development, if you like, supporting these clubs to get to minimal operating standards so that those clubs are working in a safe manner. It could also be a bit more sort of further reaching, where you're working with them to maybe get funding opportunity or look at funding opportunities, because they're looking at targeting key demographics, so they're looking to develop new opportunities for folk within their communities. So it's quite a multifaceted role. I think it's also important, and I'm sure Greg will agree with it too, you're a little bit like the glue, if you like, that's bringing all these folk together. And sometimes, being honest, not everyone that sits around a table is going to get along. So you maybe have to be that diplomatic person that sees both sides of the story and lets everyone have their say, but ultimately be that glue and make sure everyone stays together.
Greg, obviously you're sort of more of a school side of that. Is that sort of similar to how you would see it?
Yeah, I think like Martin says, obviously the roles and responsibilities vary in kind of size. It might be a case of helping a club with some of the basics to help get started. It could then lead to potentially doing some sort of funding application, helping them with that. Coach CPD. Obviously a big part of our role within the Trice Community Sports Club, because we're school based, we have great access to young people, which allows us to tap into that and hopefully get them on the pathway to become coaches or volunteers. And again, it might not necessarily be people who want to go into sport, but they want to develop skills within sport that they can then transfer to other pathways.
I think during the current climate, there's definitely been some excellent examples, particularly about how clubs and community sports hubs have benefited the community. Could you talk to us about some of the examples that you have seen, possibly recently or in the past?
Yeah, so I think obviously over the past 4 or 5 months, I think one of the biggest examples that we could speak about is the work that Stenishire FC have been doing in the local community, whether that be coordinating the school meals deliveries during the summer, creating a volunteer workforce for people to go and assist elderly and vulnerable people in the community, and again, ultimately just bringing the community together during a difficult time. Other stuff as well, obviously Falkirk Junior Bike Club is one of our linked clubs. They done a big virtual relay at the start of the lockdown period in which they raised a fantastic amount of money for Strathcarn Hospice. So I think it's important to emphasise it's not just about providing sport and physical activity, it's about bringing the community together, particularly during difficult times, and hopefully that continues as we continue the pathway out of lockdown as well.
And Martin, what about yourself, your more sort of community-based hubs in Grangemouth and Camelon? Any examples you could share with us?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's along similar lines to Greg's example there. There's Central Football Academy based over in the Grangemouth hub, and then Camelon Juniors Football Club based over in the Camelon hub. They were both doing fantastic work during the initial stages of lockdown, where they were getting out. Same idea, trying to identify that community need at the time, seeing what people needed to help them get through, and that was maybe helping with getting shopping or getting medication, or even in some cases it was just a phone call, just to have a conversation with folk. And as Greg says, I think it's fantastic. What is great to see the amount of examples that we've seen nationally with regards to clubs. Now, you're absolutely right that clubs and groups are not just about sport anymore. It's about, and it's not even sport or physical activity. It's about ingraining themselves into that community and helping to identify the need that's there and help them through that. And that's I can always remember at the very beginning of lockdown. I can't remember who said it, but people would remember what other people did or other groups and organisations did during lockdown. Now, we've just rounded off 3 examples there of really good support networks in the local communities, and I'm pretty sure that this will be remembered for a long time coming within these communities and within these areas.
Martin, you mentioned about some of the community clubs and the brilliant work they've been doing. What are the main benefits you would say of clubs working so closely together and being a part of the community sports hub?
I think one of the things that I've found by bringing clubs and groups together is that they've maybe realised that they've got more in common than they actually thought at the beginning. Because we all hear stories of, now these are just examples, but you hear stories of, say, a cricket club, for example, not getting on with the tennis club, which is right next door to it. Some instances it's maybe misconceptions that they have from one another, or they maybe think, well, we're working with different sports, we don't have anything in common. But when you actually get folk together, they maybe think, well, wait a minute, there are a lot of commonalities here. And what's fascinating is every club and group are looking to try and do the same thing. That within reason, they're all looking to try to do the same thing. They're maybe looking to target the same groups and so on. They're maybe going after the same funding. So it's actually, I think, beneficial to get these guys together, because certainly nowadays, even before COVID-19, I mean, money is very sparse. So when it comes to funding, so funders will look at joint applications or look at folk working together to support their local community. So I think there's a lot of benefits to that, but I think it comes down to as I say, a really great benefit is them realising that they're looking to achieve the same thing, and from working together they can achieve more.
Greg, is that your sort of similar thoughts on that? With that?
Yeah, just to reiterate Martin's point, I think I think sometimes the difficult part is getting the initial sit down with clubs. And then once you get to kind of that stage, I think people start realising that they do have the same kind of goals, ambitions. And I think ultimately working together, it then allows them to kind of share the load. So it's not just them that's doing it themselves, they're linking in with maybe someone in a different club who's got a more kind of better knowledge of a thing they're kind of looking to do. And again, just trying to link in with each other to find out different skills and strengths that's going to help each club. And I think as well, whilst linking in, it allows you to maybe see ideas or see ways things have been implemented to then take back to your club, another way about as well. So I think for me personally, just getting clubs sitting down initially to share their ideas and their ambitions, and then going from there, I think that's the hard part. And then once you've got them sitting down together, to then realise that they actually have similar goals that they'd like to achieve, and once they start speaking, it allows them to kind of begin the process of working together on a certain target.
Martin, you've obviously, well, both of you have highlighted all the key benefits of clubs being members of your hubs. If there's anyone out there listening that's maybe a member of a club in Camlin, Grangemouth or Larbert area, how would they go about joining your community hubs?
Well, for the hubs in Camlin and Grangemouth, it's quite a simple process, really. Initially, it would be making contact with myself. Now, that could be either through email, which is martin.wylie@falkirkcommunitytrust.org, or even if they just get in touch with the Falkirk Community Trust main phone line, that could then get directed to myself. I would then get back in touch with them. Where we, for example, obviously you guys work in active schools, and we've mentioned minimal operating standards. Where community sport hubs are a little bit different is that if clubs don't have minimal operating standards, it's not that we won't work with them. Our role is to support them to get to that position, if that works for them. So yeah, it's quite a simple process. Just really get in touch. We have a conversation. I find out more about you, your club organisation. You can find out more about me and what we're looking to do. And it's as simple as that, really. We have quite an open door policy. We're very inclusive. I think it would be really difficult to not be able to be part of the community sport hub, because we're always looking to try to be as inclusive as possible. So yeah, it's just getting in touch with us and having a chat to get the ball rolling.
Just to echo that point, obviously as well, for us it's relatively straightforward as well. So it'd be a case of making contact with myself or the Trice Community Sports Club staff, or in the past we've had people contact Larbert High School direct, because obviously we're based within there. And then other opportunities that we've had in the past as well is people liaising with the active schools coordinator and then liaising with myself, and that's created some form of partnership. But again, we're relatively big on social media as well, so we have had in the past that a club has requested more information via social media, and it'd just be a case of we then get them in, have a little chat, find out what their goals, their aims are, find out what policies they already have in place, and like Martin said, if they're not quite there, we can work with them to get into that next step. But like I said, we're always looking to work with people out with Larbert High School as well, so it's not a case of we only work with you if your sessions are based at the school. We have built up quite a lot of partnerships with local care homes or sheltered housing associations, and again we do deliveries out there with young leaders who we've kind of developed through the link with the school as well. So it's not just about what happens at Larbert High, we also like to focus on other areas of the community as well.
Yeah, but if it's okay, I just want to sort of come in and just second what Greg's saying there too. We're talking about sports clubs and groups. I think that's very important to mention too, that community sport hubs, it's all about partnership working and working with other community groups and organisations. I'm very much of the opinion that community groups and organisations, they can be very much the beating heart of their communities. That if you like, that can be a direct line into communities' needs and wants. So I think for me that they're very important groups to work with. So yeah, I just wanted to flag that up to anyone listening, that if you're maybe not necessarily a sporting club or a group, community organisations would love to get in touch with you. Third sector organisations, local charities. It's all about partnership working. So yeah, we're very keen to sort of extend that olive branch out, and the same idea, have the initial conversations, see what you're looking at doing, we'll chat about what we're planning to do, and then we can sort of see how we can work together.
You both obviously have a lot of experience of working with different clubs, and I know that the word successful can mean many different things for different clubs, but what are some of the key characteristics you think that makes a club successful, that makes a club thrive in the community?
I think that's a fantastic question, Pete. And I've actually noted down a few words that I would describe a club as, and like you said, successful clubs come in different shapes and forms. It's not just about if you're a specific sport and you go to a competition and win lots of trophies, is about other things as well. So one of the things I had was motivated. So if you set goals or aims and objectives, you've got a core group there that are willing to put the work in to develop that part of the club and reach that goal. Resilient as well. I think that's important. Like Martin said previously, clubs might require funding for new equipment, new kit, stuff like that, and sometimes these funding opportunities don't materialise. So it's about looking for other avenues that you could potentially go along in order to reach your goal. So if you don't get a funding application the first time, it doesn't necessarily mean that you won't get it the second time or the third time. It's just about looking at other ways and methods in which you can go about it. And I think that's important when it comes to working as a team, as a group, linking in with other clubs. And the final one is passionate. I think you really need to be passionate about your sport, developing opportunities, linking in with the community as well. I think that's a big part about community sports hubs. You need to be that community-focused clubs, trying to address different areas, try to target different areas, and not just focus on where you're comfortable. Try and get out your comfort zone and develop your club and build a good core group that are going to help you get there as well. And you'll normally find that working with many local community clubs, there'll be people like parents and volunteers who are willing to do different bits, not just the coaching side. So it's maybe about speaking to them and finding different interests that they might be able to help you with as well.
What about yourself, Martin? Anything that you would add to what Greg's already mentioned?
Yeah, so there's some really, really good examples from Greg and what makes a successful club. I think the only things I would add to it would be that clubs and groups, they should look to be people-centred and focus on their members' needs and potentially new members' needs. Understanding of the community needs and wants as well. I think if you can get the community and the people around you on board to your vision and passion, then that's going to really help with regards to success. And I think it's right that trophies and medals, it's one measure of success, but it's not the only measure of success. And I think that clubs, even more so now, that they maybe have to be a bit more reactive potentially, just based on what's going on around them. I mean, obviously, I don't think anyone would have anticipated what's happened in the world at the moment. So I think a lot of clubs have to be reactive, and a word that's been used quite a lot is pivot. So, and I don't mean that from the Friends episode with regards to moving a couch, but a lot of clubs have pivoted and they're responding to that community need. And obviously, we've mentioned some really good examples of that earlier on in the podcast.
Boys, your obvious enthusiasm and passion for using sport as a vehicle to drive improvements within your community is really shown throughout this interview. And to be honest, I'm surprised that you do so much work. I thought you just sat and drank coffee all day. So it's nice to hear.
Just make it look easy.
It's nice to hear a few success stories about what you've been up to. But I'll put it to you first, Martin. What is it about being a community sports hub officer that you really enjoy?
Well, there's a lot of things that I do enjoy, and I think one of the kind of key things for us is that you feel that you're making a difference. You know, I know that might sound very cliche, but I think that we're in a fortunate position that you can always feel we're in a very fortunate position that we will work with clubs and groups and organisations that have so much passion and enthusiasm to develop and provide more opportunities in their communities. And we're fortunate that we're maybe just helping them, steer them in the right direction, or we're maybe just giving them support to enable them to do that. So I always feel quite fortunate with that, we're getting the opportunity to help folk make a difference in their local area. And I always think that we maybe play a small role in that. It's these guys that always do the fantastic work. We're in a fortunate position, I believe, that we're maybe just helping them move that step closer to them achieving what they would like to do. So I always feel quite fortunate with that maybe helping folk make a difference.
What about yourself, Greg?
Yeah, just to kind of emphasise on Martin's point as well, it's just that opportunity to kind of give back to your community, help clubs develop and create new opportunities. I think from my own experience, when I was younger, I was involved with the Young Maroons programme at Stenishmuir. And then in the past, I have been involved with the delivery of that. And now with my role, I get to work alongside Stenishmuir. So seeing or having that opportunity to go back and assist with the development of clubs that I have perhaps been part of in the past is a great opportunity. But probably the biggest thing that I've enjoyed or I currently enjoy doing is working with young people. So giving young people a platform to grow and develop and create opportunities, be creative. Again, it's a good opportunity and platform to make errors, learn from them and then develop, but ultimately create young people who are going to go on and be brilliant in any form of life, any means of work. So it's not just about creating the next generation of coaches or volunteers or club leaders. It's about just creating good young people who are going to be employable when they eventually move on and leave school or do what they're going to do, but hopefully keep them in sport as well, because I think we're quite bad for doing that. They'll move on somewhere, then they get lost within the transition, but trying to push them in other opportunities as they move across the country or across the world, to keep them engaged that way as well.
I think one of the things that I admire most about the work that both you guys do is that obviously you work with young children and sort of school groups and community clubs and things like that, but it's also you're working from kids from as young as 3 right up to sort of the elderly generation as well, and I think that's a real positive, because I know recently you've both done projects with, I know Martin's had his over 50s table tennis and you've had your intergenerational care home visits and things like that. Greg, could you both maybe just give us a wee insight into some of that work that you do with the older generations?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, we were running a project based down at Cameron Community Centre called Let's Talk Table Tennis. And the idea was, as you say, it was for over 50s and there was a big focus on that social interaction. It wasn't, again, the physical activity was almost a byproduct, if you like. It was, the big focus was that social inclusion, reducing social isolation. So again, that's another love of the job, if you like. That, as you mentioned, Anis, it's not a certain demographic. It's from, to steal a quote from our place Cameron, it's from cradle to the grave. You know, it's covers all ages and abilities, and I mean it's fantastic to have the opportunity to work with these groups as well. I mean it's great. Yeah, it's really good fun.
And Greg, could you give us a wee summary of some of the work you've done with the care homes and things like that recently? Yeah,
so obviously we've created links with a number of care homes and sheltered housing places in Larbert, Stenishmuir, Carnshore. We've been going in and doing sport and physical activity. Young people from Larbert High School have been delivering that. But I think, like Martin says, there's a big emphasis on the social side. So just going in, getting a chat, sometimes getting a cup of tea, a bit of cake, and just kind of sharing ideas, sharing stories. And it will surprise you some of the things that gets discussed. And young people hopefully can learn from that, whilst obviously developing skills through delivering physical activity to the elderly And then building on that as well, we did create a link with a local nursery in which we were bridging the gap a little bit further and having nursery kids, high school kids and the elderly all engaging with one another. And again, it doesn't necessarily come down to the sport and delivery, just that kind of social factor again, having fun, creating memories, just sharing stories. And it's good to see when it's all kind of running and going. And it's probably one of the favourite parts of my job as well.
Yeah. And with the table tennis too, I mean, I forgot to mention earlier, talking about that social side of it, it's great now to see that it started off with one or two individuals. Now we're up to a sort of core group of about between 8 and 12. We've got a really good social circle. They'll go out. They had gone out at Christmas last year for a lunch together, and all this had came from them going to the table tennis. And there was a fantastic story I got from one of the members who comes along. He said that now this is an older gentleman. We'll always think of lack of confidence potentially for younger kids and school kids. This was an older gentleman who came along. So he lacked a little bit of confidence, self-esteem. As time went on, the relaxed atmosphere within the table tennis. I need to give a little name drop to George Risk. He's our key facilitator there. George is the one that makes it all happen. He makes everyone welcome, adds a little bit of his unique banter as well. But this individual, he's now coming along a lot more confident, and they said that the confidence that he developed from coming along inspired him to go along and play. I forget the instrument that he plays. That's going to annoy me. I forget which instrument that is that he plays. But prior to coming to the table tennis, he would only play in front of his music tutor. But from meeting guys coming to the table tennis, one of them's in a folk band. He now goes down and plays along with them. So we can talk about the wider impact of sport and success. We mentioned success earlier on. For me, that's another great indicator of success.
Well, gentlemen, thank you very much for your time today. It's been brilliant to talk about how sport can be that vehicle for creating positive opportunities within the community and really benefiting communities on the whole. I hope that we've done a good job on this platform of shouting about that, but also I think we've been quite informative. So if there are any clubs or anyone out there looking to get in touch, we'll make sure that we make that information available. And I just want to finish by saying thank you very much for joining us on the Just Us podcast.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having me as well.
Thanks, guys.